Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of SPW News. I'm your host Javier Rodriguez and today we have news coming out from Miami, Florida. When you think of Miami, what comes to mind? Is it the beautiful beaches or the extravagant shopping centers or even the nightlife? Well, in a century from today, if I were to ask someone the same exact question, their response would probably be, what's Miami, or isn't that the city that drowned? Well, unfortunately, yes. In a century from today, the great city of Miami will drown and will become the next Atlantis. I went to Miami this weekend to find out why. You'd never know by looking at the city today. Beautiful beaches, new upscale shopping malls, and the skyline of downtown crowded with construction cranes will all soon be underwater. If temperatures continue to rise due to extreme carbon emissions, it will affect the sea levels. Glaciers and polar caps in places like Antarctica and Greenland will melt faster, causing the sea to expand and rise. This is why we will soon have to say bye to Miami. Miami is located in Florida. It has a very flat topography. I mean, there is little land in the city that reaches over 6 feet above sea level. Just to give you an idea, out of the 4.2 million US citizens that live at an elevation of 4 feet or less, 2.4 million of them live in or around Miami. This means that with just 3 feet of sea level rise, more than a third of Miami will be wiped out. At 6 feet, more than half will vanish. If sea levels were to rise 12 feet, well, Miami would look like the Florida Keys, just little islands everywhere surrounded by water. It won't be long until we'll start seeing this happen. Just in the last 5 years, Miami saw a sea level rise of 1.27 inches of water per year. If that rate holds steady for the next 50 years, high tide levels in Miami would go up over 5 feet. But today, Miami deals with flooding every time it rains or storms, and it does affect people's lives.
My house actually got flooded, and it was about 2 inches of water throughout my whole house, so it was really hard to live in my house. We had to tear up all the floors and have it all fixed, so it was a big dilemma in my family.
The floods that I've experienced in Miami have been really just impactful. The worst one that I've ever seen was Hurricane Katrina and Wilma. It impacted my aunt and my uncle and their children, their house. It flooded 2.5 feet. You could see the water line around the house very clearly, like the water line. It had flooded all their furniture and all their possessions, and thank God it was a 2-story house and a lot of the things were upstairs.
I've experienced several floods in Miami, particularly in my driveway because it is so low that the water reaches the level of my ankles and it causes trouble for me to get to my car and in turn makes me late for events and different things I have to attend.
When it floods, the water is dumped into the ocean. How does this happen? Well, the city uses salinity control structures, also known as gate steel structures, to flush out the water. This structure is the barrier between our freshwater supply and the ocean. When our freshwater supply gets flooded after it rains or storms, the gate opens and releases water to get rid of the floods. For this structure to work, however, the seawater has to be lower than the gate. If the seawater is leveled or above the gate, when the gate opens to release the fresh water, the salt water comes through the gate and contaminates our fresh water supply. This means that in approximately 50 years, when sea levels will rise a couple of feet, 82% of the structures in the region will no longer work. And if we can't open the gates because of rising sea levels, well, then flooding will occur and Miami will start to drown. You may be saying, well, why don't we just think of a new way to drain the water? Or why don't we see what other cities and countries are doing to deal with this problem? Well, it's not that simple. The reason being is because Miami is built on top of a rock called porous limestone. People would describe porous limestone as Swiss cheese because there are a lot of openings in the rock, which means water moves around easily. This is a problem because the water is able to seep through the limestone and onto the surface, flooding streets, yards, etc. Miami is doing what it can to prevent flooding. Currently, they are building $400 million pumps in Miami Beach, a high flood zone, to send the floodwater out to sea. The city is also expanding seawalls, making them taller and wider. The installments of the new pipes and expanded seawalls will help prevent flooding, but temporarily. And many Republican political figures in Florida don't really think that we can do anything about it. For example, Florida Senator Marco Rubio can be heard saying, quote, "I do not believe that human activity is causing these dramatic changes in our climate the way these scientists are portraying it. I do not believe that the laws that they propose we pass will do anything about it except destroy our economy. Governor Rick Scott said that he's not convinced that global warming is caused by human beings, which has led the residents of Miami to believe the same. That is why the city is not in total freak mode right now. So are the people of Miami really aware of what's to come?
Not really. Not many people talk about the rising sea levels, but I'm sure one day we'll be underwater.
Yes, I've already seen some of the rising sea levels in the news. They showed a few boutiques in South Beach that were damaged because of the water that came in, so they had to repair all their floors and even merchandise.
Yeah, I mean, no one really talks about it much, but in like 100 or a few hundred years, Miami will probably be underwater, which sucks, I guess, for like my grandkids will probably have to move.
Well, I've kind of heard people talking about it, but I don't know much about it, so I think that there should be more awareness about the rising sea levels.
People are still moving into the city, new buildings are being added to downtown, and the people are just going on with their lives as if nothing is going to happen. But in a couple of decades, I think it'll really start to hit people that Miami will soon be gone when land and property values begin to plummet because no one wants to buy there, when people start migrating out of the city, when Miami will no longer be able to raise enough taxes to run its neighborhoods, and when there's no more drinking water. Although it might be too late to save Miami completely, we can and should start reducing our dependence on fossil fuels through our personal choices and with our votes. That way we can minimize the extent of the sea level rise. So, if you've yet to visit the beautiful city of Miami, I would go now. Well, that's all the time we have for now, and that's all the information I have for you. In Miami, Florida, for SPW News, I'm Javier Rodriguez. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to take care of the environment because you do not want to end up like Miami. For SPW News, I'm Javier Rodriguez. Have a great day, everyone.